Hi there guys, I hope you are having a good day. Now Eddie Hearn has revealed that Alexander Povetkin will not be ready for Dillian Whyte in January, and they will be looking probably for a new date, but they could also be looking for a new opponent for Dillian Whyte. And the names that Eddie Hearn has mentioned is Andy Ruiz Jr., Deontay Wilder and Luis Ortiz. Those are fights that he would be very interested in making for Dillian Whyte. Now of course this is a situation where Dillian Whyte has to make his decision. Does he want to wait for Alexander Povetkin or does he want to take on another opponent? Because if he waits for Povetkin, how long is he going to be waiting? Because Alexander Povetkin has had a worse bout of COVID than was first believed. So that is the reason as to why he cannot train and get ready for January. So Alexander Povetkin is going to be out for a considerable amount of time. Is he trying to buy time? That is what some are asking. I don't know. But at the end of the day, Dillian Whyte just needs to get on. He needs a fight. And I think that being out of the ring too long is not going to be too great for him because he is 32. I'm not saying he's getting old, but still, he's at that point where he's peaking now. So he needs to be in these big fights. I didn't want to see him go back in there with Povetkin too early, not in November. I thought that was too soon after the knockout. Obviously, Dillian Whyte is a fighter and he knows himself better than anyone else, but I just didn't want to see him going back in there too quickly. It could be a blessing in disguise, I guess, in some ways, and a fight with Luis Ortiz and Dillian Whyte. It's an interesting fight, but I think that the two names that Eddie Hearn has mentioned, we would rather see Dillian Whyte versus Ruiz or Dillian Whyte versus Deontay Wilder. The Wilder fight is going to be the biggest one, in my opinion, because of the previous between the two of them. But then again, of course, there has been some back and forth between Andy Ruiz and Dillian Whyte, so there's a storyline for both of them. Luis Ortiz is a good fight, I just don't think it's of the caliber and of the level of a fight with Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz Jr., but if that fight were to happen, it's still a good fight. Not as big as Alexander Povetkin either, and yet still he's going to have to be at his best to beat Luis Ortiz. I think that Luis Ortiz is a good fighter. I don't think he's the fighter that everyone thought he was a couple of years ago, the boogeyman of the heavyweight division. He's not that guy, I don't believe, because I think that he hasn't faced the opponents that prove he is. It's all very well saying that he's got this skill, he's got that skill, he can do this, he can do that, but he's only proved it in there with a certain level of opponent. Then he jumped to Deontay Wilder and got knocked out twice, so you can see him performing extremely well, but had he jumped to a different level, like say Andy Ruiz, Anthony Joshua consistently, then he would have been found out more often because he did the two times he had a world title opportunity against Deontay Wilder. So I think that we cannot consider him necessarily as a boogeyman in the heavyweight division, such as he was made out to be a few years ago. Now, interestingly enough, if Deontay Wilder cannot get Tyson Fury back in the ring, which is its own set of problems and issues and situations and all of that, I mean, we won't go too much into that because obviously there is a situation where he had an opportunity but didn't take it. So does he even really still want to fight Tyson Fury is the big question. But considering that, he named 5 opponents and Dillian Whyte was one of those opponents he named. In fact, he specifically called out Dillian Whyte for a fight. So Deontay Wilder would be interested in that fight, so we are led to believe. I mean, we don't know whether he's going to back that up or not. Hopefully he does, but that would definitely be a big fight next year. It's just whether Deontay Wilder does actually want to do it, because he's called Dillian Whyte's name, and now Eddie Hearn has said they are looking into a potential Deontay Wilder fight as a replacement for Alexander Povetkin. So that's definitely a fight that could happen, provided both parties did want to do it. I think Dillian Whyte would jump at that opportunity. I just don't know whether Deontay Wilder is going to want to take that fight. They are both, though, coming off of losses, so they are both in the same situation. Deontay Wilder cannot say that he doesn't want to fight Dillian Whyte because he's coming off of a loss and doesn't want to go into a big fight like that, because Dillian Whyte is in the same boat, so he cannot use that as an excuse. So in the event that this fight happens, they are both coming off of a loss, but they have a great opportunity to propel themselves back to the top. I mean, they never really left. Deontay Wilder is still ranked very well. He's just not a world champion anymore. Dillian Whyte still ranked quite well, but again, he's not that WBC interim champion and a mandatory to the WBC, something he's waited for an extremely long time. So does Dillian Whyte risk it all again? Because he's done that continuously. He got to that mandatory slot. He was promised a fight in early 2021 against the WBC champion, and he stumbled against Povetkin, which was very unfortunate, but he got that far, then he stumbled. Does he want to risk it in a big fight again? Absolutely, he will do that. Should he? I guess that's another question, because he does need a world title opportunity. He's having great fights, yes, but if he wants to become world champion, he needs to dedicate his peak years to doing that, and that would be around now. I think that between 30 and now, I think that that is when Dillian Whyte has been at his best. I think that he's not going to get much better. There's not a lot more that he can learn, and I think that he is a complete fighter, as he is. So, is there a world championship opportunity that is going to be presented to him? Not at the moment, because Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury are supposed to be fighting. If not, then Tyson Fury maybe has an opening for an opponent. Maybe that could be Dillian Whyte. So the interesting thing about this situation is if Dillian Whyte holds off for a little bit, and say Anthony Joshua fights Alexander Usyk, then who's Tyson Fury going to fight in the interim? Could be Dillian Whyte. Now that's not set in stone, so Dillian Whyte waiting for that to happen could be detrimental to his career because he could stagnate as a result. So he cannot necessarily wait in the hope that that could potentially happen, because that takes a specific set of circumstances to play out. So he does need a fight. Who does he fight? Does he wait for Povetkin? Does he wait in the hope that he gets a Tyson Fury fight? Or does he take one of those 3 opponents that Eddie Hearn has put forward? I think that he should go for one of the 3 opponents that Eddie Hearn has put forward. Then the Povetkin fight is still there. Then a potential Tyson Fury fight is still there. I think that the thing is with Dillian Whyte in this current situation is he's kind of left it in the hands of the governing bodies. So he wants a world title opportunity. He's got to mandatory. He's done everything by the book. So I think that maybe he needs to stop doing things by the book, because there are fighters who get world title opportunities all the time when they are ranked number 5, number 8, number 10 sometimes, even lower. I mean, Tyson Fury was going to fight ranked 15 opponent Ajit Kabayel in a defense on the December 5th. So, I mean, it's often fighters who aren't highly ranked that still get world title opportunities. And I think that if Dillian Whyte maintains his status by fighting fighters like the names that have been mentioned by Eddie Hearn, how can he not be warranted a world title opportunity? If next year, say he beats Ruiz, or beats Deontay Wilder, then beats Povetkin, that is incredible. That is a brilliant 2021 for Dillian Whyte. How can he not get a world title opportunity after that, regardless of where he's ranked in the governing bodies? If anyone wants a big fight, a big name, Dillian Whyte is going to be that guy after 2021. So he's been through the tough fights, taking them when he's been ranked highly, and that hasn't paid off for him. So maybe he has to do it again, one more time. These 2 top opponents, say Povetkin at the end of the year, one of these 3 opponents in the early stages of 2021, then he gets his world title opportunity. Maybe with a different governing body, maybe he has to go a completely different route from the WBC, even though that's the one he wants. But still, if he fights Wilder, he's ranked, what, number 3 I think, by the WBA. That is very interesting. Luis Ortiz is ranked quite highly. Andy Ruiz is ranked quite highly. Go a different route is what I would say to Dillian Whyte. That is the best thing that he can do. The WBC have continuously not given him his opportunity. So the best thing to do is go with a different governing body and still challenge for a world title potentially in 2022. So big fights for Dillian Whyte on the horizon. In my opinion, the best fight for him would be Deontay Wilder. Biggest kind of animosity between the 2 of them, it would be the biggest fight. Ruiz would be an interesting fight as well. I just think that the Wilder would garner a lot more interest than the Ruiz fight. Guys, anyway, what are your thoughts on this? Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below, leave a thumbs up, and subscribe if you are new. Thanks guys.